Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 86 of Podcast of Five Rings, your source of enlightenment in the realm of video games, tabletop, anime, film, and tech. Each episode of Podcast of Five Rings releases Monday mornings on iTunes and SoundCloud, and topic by topic, day by day on YouTube, with the full video releasing on Friday. To catch updates about the podcast or for other news, give us a follow on your social media platform of choice. List in the description below. I'm your host, GM, and overseer of Podcast of Five Rings, Obsidian, joined tonight by the resident wildcard Mao.
Yo.
And the Dark Fortune Duelist Meta.
Yo.
And Tets is out of town. He's with us in spirit. He vows to be back next week. So he can hear the Final Fantasy XIV discussion.
Yes, absolutely.
So yeah, we've 4th of July obviously was on the last Thursday when we would normally record, and then we had the week off for that. So we've been off a while. What you guys been doing?
Didn't give me time to recharge.
I'm glad I had an extended time off work. A nice little half-week mini vacation, 4 days off to just completely be absorbed in Final Fantasy. That's basic. Yeah. We had a cookout, and then I just played Final Fantasy the entire time almost.
I actually had the whole week off because I took off for Shadowbringers release.
Oh, wow.
I had the whole week off. But funny story on that. So our company did the 4th of July being off and whatnot, and they did an early release for people on Wednesday on the day before. So today, my supervisor actually came back because they took a different time period of off, and they were messaging me, and they're like, and we were talking and said, hey, by the way, did you know that they had every one of our sites closed down on the 5th? And I'm like, wait, what? And they said only the HQ building was open. Every other site, like our other guys, got to other locations for their normal jobs, and they were actually told no, the building shut down. I'm like,
because
I don't know. We literally don't know. They ended up sending out an email and whatnot, and to them, but we were just talking about. I'm like, I can't understand why they would close down every production facility, but they wouldn't. They wouldn't close down the HQ itself. It was really weird. So, but we talked about it for a little bit, and I said, okay, well, whatever. I mean, if that's what they wanted to do. So.
Yeah, our store was closed too, so.
I was just really surprised because they didn't announce it to anybody.
Just people showed up to work and couldn't get
That's
in.
what happened. People showed up on site and they had to be turned away.
Weird.
Get out of here.
I know.
That would have sucked for you because you commute a long way.
Oh yeah, I have to commute a long way. I mean, I was glad I had the day off naturally.
Yeah,
now I'm kind of wondering. Now I'm kind of wondering, can I get that day back?
Yeah,
please.
So I gotta talk with HR about that. I was like, that's a really weird thing to just tell people that they go home.
Mm-hmm.
The site's closed.
What about you, man?
How was your 5th?
I don't know. I had to work. Work's sucked lately.
Yeah, it does that.
Yep,
it's also been extremely
overtime.
hot. How's the weather been down there? Because it's been heat wave city up here. The index has been
hot,
like 106 every day.
It's been hot, but I don't think hotter than usual. Like probably around 100, but it's
just normal for.
It's been pretty rainy too some days actually. Which I assume. I try not to go outside whenever possible in the summer, so I mostly go AC to AC is my general goal. So
see, that's what's so nice about going to Gen Con for me. I say this every year. I think it's just there's no humidity in Indiana. It's amazing.
That's true. Indiana honestly has no humidity. You get heat for sure.
Yeah, I mean it's hot, but
it's never humid.
I'm not immediately soaked in sweat when I step outside.
Step outside and you're immediately sweating a waterfall right on your brow.
Right now, our humidity is 69. Nice.
So, does anything actually live down there, or is it?
That's
the dreaded Florida man does.
That's kind of low.
No,
65% is low.
Probably, yeah. I don't know.
Is that average? I think we're talking with Tets. He did state that 40% is your guy's low. If it's 40% humidity, it's kind of low out there.
When there have been times where I've traveled to places with lower humidity, and my nose will start to bleed because it gets so dry.
Wow.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like,
because it's
here
just
I am,
humid
I'm s-
all year long.
I'm sitting here and I'm like, yeah, and 40% humidity to the most of the world generally means you would start suffocating on your own breath. It's-
You get to deal with them and the love bugs.
Yeah,
The
it's
dreaded
only
love
real
bugs.
bad when you go over like a lake or something.
oh God.
Then you just
That's
have a
probably the worst
black
part.
front of the car.
Yeah.
Like, dang it! I got a whole nest of creatures in my front grill.
Where man? We geez, probably a decade ago or whatever. We went there's for work. We had this testing site, and the containers that we would leave there, like when we would during the summer months, like it would just be a wall of black lady love bugs. Like it was
Ooh,
it just would be like a shifting wall of black.
Yeah.
Like,
that
on these,
is
like, pan containers.
that is eerie. That like to
Yeah.
walk around a corner and just see that. I'm like, no, you know what? I'm gonna come back a different day.
Yeah,
I've seen enough horror movies to know how this is gonna end for me if I approach that container.
Yeah, that's what happened to me a few weeks ago. I was at my buddy's painting some of my minis with him, and I went outside to prom stuff. He has a bucket out there, and I moved his water hose, and there was just a swarm of, I don't know what insect they were. They were red and black.
Oh,
They looked like little beetles of some kind, just literally like thousands of them on his water
Was
hose.
it a ladybug?
It wasn't ladybugs. They weren't spotted.
oh,
Unless
okay.
there's a version that isn't spotted. I could be
No.
wrong. I'm not
If it
an
wasn't spotted, then I have no
insectologist, and I know there's an actual word for that. I don't know it. But yeah, so on his bucket, when I touched it, the hose, I moved it. Literally like swarms of them. There's like a hole in his roommate's house that they were all coming out of and stuff, and I was like, well, this is horrifying.
Yeah, I was gonna be like, no, you know what?
They're just going to
Another day,
smother
maybe.
me. I just sprayed them with primer to get them away, and they started running.
That's yeah. I'd be like, no, you know, different day. I think I'm done.
Yeah, I don't mess around with insects, particularly those that fly and sting,
Wow.
because I'm allergic.
You telling me that you don't like hornets, wasps?
No.
bees?
It's, his bloodline is weak and inferior.
Yeah.
Can't handle the sting.
No, I can't. My arm swells up like a grapefruit.
Oh man, Jesus.
Yeah, it's not like it's not like
Die?
serious bad or anything. It could be worse. I'm just like abnormally allergic to it. Like I'll have a
Okay.
much
But
worse
it's-
reaction than's typical.
I see.
It's not a fatal reaction, but it's
No,
definitely not a
it's
reaction.
not a comfortable one.
Yeah. You sure? You're trying to tell me that swelling of the sides of a melon fruit is not an ideal situation?
No, it's not. Well, on that note, let's get into topics. And I think you got an ideal something you want to explain, Meta.
Yeah, I do have an ideal something, and that ideal something is something I'm not going to explain. Let's talk about it. No, actually,
Here it is. Next topic.
here it is. Next topic. On to the next person. Don't talk about my topic anymore, ever again. Actually, no. What I wanted to kind of talk about is the other day I was watching a review done by, because with Shadowbringers having been out, talk about World of Warcraft and Battle for Azeroth has been going on. They just recently really dropped down their newest
Yeah, 8.2.
video. Yeah, like they had a new cutscene and whatnot. The big bad guy, if you haven't seen it, well, spoiler alert. The big bad guy does escape. It looks like somehow
No.
player characters. Yeah, right. It's a
It wasn't
surprise.
Ashara, it was Nazoth the whole time.
The whole time. Old man is off.
Yeah. The old gods.
You got away with
You
two,
just
but
keep
one for you
killing them,
pesky
they keep
yours-
coming back.
I would have gotten away with two, but one for you pesky Azerothians and
Yep.
your what? And your
Thanks for the
mates,
necklace,
too.
bro. Bye. It's basically
So-
8.2 in a nutshell.
Yeah, pretty much. So they've dropped that information down and whatnot. People have been talking about it. There's been kind of the joking with World of Warcraft and Blizzard posting out like 3 free days. Like they've done it twice now with Shadowbringers having dropped, and people have been kind of making fun of it for a little bit. Like they're desperately trying to get back the player base. And so
I think Final Fantasy has more subscribers than WoW does right now.
it does. It actually does. They, at the end of Stormblood, mind you, prior to Shadowbringers actually dropping, at the end of Stormblood, they had just passed over 1 million active subscribers. They had 1 million active people playing the game within the last month census. And I am certain that number is only going to increase since Shadowbringers dropped. But more importantly, with the talk of World of Warcraft and whatnot, and the disappointment I've seen with a lot of people within its storytelling and the stuff I've seen, it kind of got me thinking about where that failure might have been. And I kind of think, I don't know if I dawned on like, I figured it out kind of thing, but I do think one of the biggest problems I've seen with World of Warcraft, and is actually a similar shape with Legends of the Five Rings, in almost a sense, because at the end of Legends of the Five Rings lifespan, it was actually dwindling in player numbers. There were definitely talks of trying to figure a way to get more people.
Reboot, in quotes.
Yeah, in a way, almost, yes. And that's kind of what they were doing with the end of the storyline.
And that's talking WoW, too. That there's a potential reboot, like a soft reboot. I mean,
yeah, it's definitely been there. And I think both of these guys, their biggest issues kind of come from that lightning in a jar that they captured on their initial release for what it was, and the love for it, and how it could only kind of really only go upwards from there. If you watch a prolific YouTuber, his name is I forgot. Oh no, I'm gonna go blank on it.
He's prolific.
He's prolific. He's a YouTuber. What's his name? Oh, give me a second here. I can grab his name. Let's see here.
Stretching for time. Stretching for time.
Just making things up.
Here we are,
Matthew
stretching for
Colville. There we go.
Oh yeah, Colville.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Matthew Colville. Yes, yeah. There you go.
Yeah, he talks about D&D a lot.
Yeah, a
He
lot
does
of
talk about
D&D.
D&D. He talks about many different elements and whatnot. But one of his videos, he actually talks about the greatest story in gaming.
Yeah, it's my favorite video.
L5R,
It is
right?
L5R, absolutely. And in this story, he talks about both the love of people had for it, the amazing idea that the story is living, and as you play the game, the storyline will change, and then if players do something, it affects the storyline, which earnestly is one of the best parts about L5R. But jumping back here real fast, they both suffer what I think is from the syndrome that I'm just going to name, because I don't know if there's actually like a term for it out there or not, but from war that cannot end.
Mm-hmm.
Both World of Warcraft, and if you've played the games before, Warcraft, which had World of Warcraft obviously had the love and ability for Warcraft prior to it kind of giving it the love that World of Warcraft got from people jumping over from the Warcraft series into World of Warcraft itself. But L5R kind of had to start just blank and whatnot and really sell itself on its own initial premise. But they both are quite literally starting off about two factions opposing one another and kind of at war with one another. Warcraft, in the sense of World of Warcraft and the Warcraft series in general, was first, just orcs versus humans. And then it kind of expanded into a storyline with 2, with a little bit more into it. And then by the time you get to Warcraft 3, they've truly kind of fleshed out and a really good storyline and stuff for it, delving into both Illidan and Arthas, and the Lich King, and so on and so forth, and really building a lot of lore and backstory. But at the base bone, it's always kind of been about these two factions clashing with one another. And L5R, when its initial release, kind of took that to 7 in the beginning, where 7 factions are kind of colliding with each other, with a couple of minor clans and families,
and the Shadowlands and all,
and the Shadowlands, which were its own beast, technically making like 8 factions, quote unquote. And they've jumped in and out of different factions. They've had like Toturi's army, they've had the Naga, so on and so forth.
The Brotherhood of Shinsu.
The Brotherhood.
Was a playable There's a lot of playable factions.
There's a lot of factions.
The beginning of the game.
But they were there, and they really both had that kind of magic. They had this wonderful idea, these two factions colliding with one another, and they were kind of in that uncharted territory in their own ways. For L5R, it was multiple factions with decks of clans, much like Magic the Gathering, with a theme around that clan, but having multiple styles of win victories and different clans focusing on those different styles of victories, giving it a wonderful, breathtaking idea mixed with the ever-evolving storyline affected by players. And in World of Warcraft itself, it had a vibrant, very large set of mythology and lore to it to build its based upon, with the initial game not really focusing on anything more than these two factions fighting, and here's some endgame content to play through, and that deals with undead and stuff. And that's kind of really what it was all about. But if you'd played during Vanilla Warcraft, you'd be very well aware of the fact that that was probably when faction fighting between players of themselves was larger than ever, partly because the only way to PvP before they implemented Battlegrounds was to go to somebody else's house and burn it down until they sent more guys over to stop you from burning it down and to take their house back.
There's a raid on Goldshire. There's a raid on the Crossroads.
Absolutely. There were raids everywhere. It was a very common thing, but it almost kind of helped breed that idea of no, we're definitely at war with them. We're fighting them because look at us. They're fucking up our quest givers. We can't have players leveling up. We're getting ganked and Stranglethorn Valley. I need to call my level.
I need to call my hunter. All these rogues are here and he's got flash bombs.
Exactly. You need to call them over. I mean, you've definitely got stories and legends and players of their own lore and myth that you can look up that are real people who have done some really crazy things over the game and the like. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it was very alive and vibrant. But that seems to be where these games always come back to. The problem is ultimately at the end of the day, and this is where the crux of the issue I think is that it can't be that way. They keep creating storylines where eventually some clan or the factions themselves go at war with each other, but because they can't truly commit to the death or the victory of one clan in an absolute manner, they always need to introduce a third party. In regards to World of Warcraft, you have the at least beyond vanilla, because vanilla truly was kind of like its own beast coming off of EverQuest.
Yeah, there was no big bad of vanilla.
There really wasn't. You just had the kind of the end game raids, which were very hard to get to. So there was that. But then you had in Burning Crusade, you had obviously Illidan, and then in Wrath of the Lich King, you had Arthas. But ultimately, it would always come back to is like, oh no, we kind of need to bring back the factions, but the wars between the factions of Alliance and Horde, and in
the whole
Cataclysm,
BFA.
After Wrath of the Lich King, they really tried to even during Wrath of the Lich King, they tried to preserve that mentality of nothing else. And then during Cataclysm, they kind of wanted to create that mentality. I remember it being a very big goal that they wanted to push forward of reigniting that kind of fighting between the two clans and whatnot. And Mists of Pandaria kind of wanted to continue on, but really maintain again, like Wrath of the Lich King. And then you had the Legion, which truth be told, I didn't really pay much attention to. And now Battle for Azeroth is like reigniting it quite literally through its own storyline of it and whatnot. But the problem is that it's been faltering. It's been failing for years, and it's only gotten worse, not only just because of mechanical items and whatnot, but the storylines themselves are very lackluster. This war feels very weird. We've just had, for World of Warcraft, you just had Garrosh, who was already corrupted and trying to cause conflict and fights and whatnot, and now you have Sylvanas burning down trees.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's Garrosh Part 2.
Yeah, and that's really what a lot of people say. It just feels like the same thing, and they're almost expecting to be like, oh, she's corrupted, or oh, she's actually doing it to do something good, or oh, somebody gave really bad advice. We're seeing the storyline kind of pan out now. Legend of the Five Rings kind of has the same issue, but in a different way. Yeah. It's constantly where we have the Day of Thunder, probably one of the most magnificent, not only because it focuses almost solely on the clan wars, Sengoku Jidai, but you have all these clans fighting each other. You have the emperor who's died off, and you have two warring factions who both have potentially rights to the throne, with a third evil party intermingling. And at the end of it all, it turns out that, truth be told, it was manipulating from the shadows. They come forth, 7 heroes, go on out, beat the villain at a bittersweet victory, but ultimately the empire survives and the story can continue. Again.
For the same thing that happened, basically. With
and again. And again. And that keeps happening. And it's a problem.
Yeah, I believe Coville says in that video that they were going to end it after the Day of Thunder and just not ever doing it. But the game was so popular back then that, like, they literally had to.
They had to continue it on. But the problem was that story should have ended. We've had... If you look through the history of LFR and you look at the number of characters that they've done, and they've done some small time skips here and there, but it's never really enough to justify the amount of fights in the
It's like a generation, maybe. At best, typically.
it's really ridiculous about how often they get into fights and wars with one another, and there always seem to
After
have
1,000 years of peace.
just enough men to always send off to war about 5 years later. So it's just like, man, they are really pushing out those children to raise them up to die in a fight.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, where are they pulling their ranks from and whatnot? How many people are actually dying in these fights? Because from a storyline standpoint, it sounds like a lot, but then not so much actually. I mean, we just had, what was the Destroyer War at the end of the AEG? The Destroyer War was like what, 10 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. It wasn't that long ago before, we were starting on like the next quote unquote Day of Thunder, so to speak. I mean, this wasn't really long ago. It's not much time. I could be wrong. I didn't look at the numbers.
It was like 15, I think, maybe.
Yeah,
Something.
so it's enough for like, let's get enough for like a generation and a half. So that's not too bad. But ultimately, the problem is that it ends up being the same story, and that's really the more important key part here is that the factions can't change. You can't kill off the Lion Clan. If we did that, we'll lose all of our Lion Clan players.
Well, the end of one of the mega games, I think it was the Race for the Throne, where the spider, it was like, whoever gets last place in the mega game, which, mega game, for those who don't know, AG always had like a game outside of the card game that would be kind of like the big story prize for the block of the game. So, and this was Samurai Edition, I believe. I could be wrong. It was all about the Race for the Throne. Dottori Naseru had wandered off on his quest for enlightenment and got killed in the Shadowlands, because of course he did. So which clan is going to be the emperor? The whole mega game, there's multiple things like cosplay contests, RPG events, like food drives. You would get points as a clan, and whoever had the most points would get to choose a character who would become the emperor. The Dragon Clan won, and that's how we got Oweko. But the clan that lost was supposed to get dissolved, basically, and like everybody becomes a Ronin. The spider got last, and I believe they knew they were going to be important for the story later, so they just kind of hand waved that down the road. They're like, well, they're already kind of not a clan anyways, but they were eligible, so it makes sense. Yeah, which is such a cop out, by the way.
So that's really unfortunate to hear.
Yeah, it comes down to, it's really like it's these games that, like, when you have
evergreen games, basically, they don't end.
Yeah, they don't want to progress the story too much, because you can't have anything widely changed, because you can't lose a faction, because that would, upset a large portion, or maybe is just tied to the game in general. Like you can't lose the Horde for war.
What? Like, there's speculation, Mal. I'll talk about in a second. Finish your point.
Well, maybe you can, but for a long time, like a character, when you start up World of Warcraft and want to play through the old stuff, like you can't mechanically get rid of all that.
No.
Yeah.
Like, and because you basically would have to start a new game, which, I mean, that would be like the whole reboot talk. Because you can still go through all the old expansions in WoW, right? So
pretty much
that would change that. Like, just wouldn't work. There's Warcraft, or at least 40K was a big blah 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 words.
It happens to the best of
person
us.
Who I don't know. They were real bad about this for the longest time, to the point where, like, I've dropped out, and I understand now that they are like progressing the story a bit, but like you can never do anything so drastic to like wipe out half the factions or whatever, because then like suddenly they lose their $1,000 army, right? Like, they can never take that risk.
Absolutely not.
And then like Magic, when they started doing their story, it was about war and stuff, but their mechanics are tied to the colors. They're never going to get rid of an entire color. But
they don't need to. That's the beauty of Magic, actually. I wanted to point that out real fast. Magic's beauty and almost saving grace is that it's not actually tied to like some specific faction or not. It's specifically tied to a style, a thought, or a mentality, a way of magic in and of itself.
Right, which they play around with. But it's just the color wheel is probably one of the greatest creations in gaming.
I would say absolutely yes. It allows them to perform storylines and whatnot.
Like the original story is about the Brothers' War. Like when they finally started getting into the story stuff, which I think was like 94. Yeah, Urza, which then led into Phyrexians and Yawgmoth and stuff. And they've had these big epic storylines and these villains that they can permanently kill. Yawgmoth's dead, and I don't think he's ever coming back.
Which Bolus is gone now.
Yeah, well, lately
away.
They have been kind of like reserved about killing their villains, but they can tuck them away for like 10 years. And like you get new, well, part of it is because of the way Magic is set up is you can hop from world to world. That also allows them to do way more variety.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The different planes and stuff really help the story stay fresh.
It's honestly when they came up with Magic, it's probably one of the most brilliant strokes. They not only did not tie themselves too hard to anything, but allow themselves to still keep something that's familiar for your players while experimenting with new items. And yet at the same time, they're always able to try something new, to create a new story, to make new heroes, and to set
It's
up.
cool. It's like a fast food item too. It's like the plane goes away, then you eventually have the promise of coming back to it one day. And people love their planes. I want my Szechuan sauce back, and I want my chili cheese burrito Taco Bell.
They even had like sort of a soft reboot for the storyline, like when I started playing, so like a little over a decade ago. But none of the mechanics had to change because it was only a story decision. And like separating them enough, like separating the mechanics and the story enough, let them do that. Like, otherwise you have to like reboot the entire game, which is
the other what I was going to say earlier, going back to WoW, kind of like one of the big kind of I think problems with the story and the trope they do, and it kind of ties in with the whole endless war motif, like thing they just keep going back, that the game seems to have a problem because it's World of Warcraft. There's always a war. They even acknowledge it in the latest patch. There's like the cutscene with Jaina and Thrall, because Thrall comes back, and they're like, every time we like band together and then we just dissolve back to fight, like the Horde Alliance come together to defeat a big bad, then they just like go right back to fighting. Like they're kind of, I think, trying to get away from that finally. Cause like the Horde right now has the whole story with the Horde is that you're either loyal to Sylvanas or loyal to Thrall, basically, and Thrall and them are allying with Stormwind, and because Sylvanas tried to basically kill the leader of the Tauren and all this stuff, or did she? Like, because she's I suspect she's gonna have the Dindu thing where she's like actually has like, if I did it all for the good of Azeroth, it was my secret super plan that I couldn't tell anybody. Thing, which is it's another trope that kind of gets old sometimes too, but I don't, these stories can only tell. This is kind of like the point. These stories that don't stop and keep building on each other and stay in the same world, kind of, they probably can only tell so many stories.
Like
and then
the other option is to make things feel fresh is to
time skip.
Yeah, they could. Every expansion could be a larger time skip, right?
Yeah.
To where you don't have the same characters showing up all the time to make it like going to war every few years like is unreasonable for these same characters.
And I think AG figured that out at the end, what they were going to do.
Yeah, they were really. They were going
to skip like 3 generations, I think.
They were going to do a lot because we actually we had the pleasure. I don't know, was it ever released to public or was it just
the Onyx stuff?
The last story had like I think it had Saken's like granddaughter was like the leader of the refugees.
Yeah, it was
colonies.
like his granddaughter.
Yeah, they revealed some of it. Like there's the stuff with the Mantis. They revealed there was a story or whatever from like the Mantis was no longer a clan, but it was like from their perspective or something.
It was. I think that was ultimately what needed to happen, though. We needed to see a change. We needed.
Which they ended up doing by the other option is making an entire new game.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they ended up selling it out and never got to
Yeah.
pass, which was in itself disappointing. But
Yeah, it was going to be cool, and everyone who play tested said the new edition was like really good too. So
yeah, it's really unfortunate. But that's kind of like, unfortunately, these are the beasts that they've kind of made of themselves. Sticking to a storyline that constantly repeats the same beats, it causes a very slow, almost sorrowful degradation of quality within the storyline in of itself. Things have to change. That's just a mandatory point when you make a storyline. The reason why Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder are oftentimes never really changing is that while they have definitely their own worlds and whatnot, and that they can do stuff in them, a lot of their stuff is created being very world neutral, so to speak. So you can just plop it in any world that you want to make up off on the bat, and you're done. You can make your own world, and you're good to go. And you can just plop these. There are more assets than they actually are tied to the world itself. Which kind of helps again, and much like how Magic is about the color wheel and whatnot. It allows it to, and it's because it's always hopping worlds. Kind of allows it to just be very loose with things. It's more of an asset than it actually is an actual thing tied very, very strictly to the world that it's a part of. D&D and Pathfinder are able to kind of do the same thing because they're just something you plop down in a world that you can make.
Yeah, it's a role set, not a setting.
Magic was recently they were trying to shake up their story stuff with following the same group of people for an extended period of time, and they found it wasn't quite working. So
yeah,
they are going away from that a bit more now. Like supposedly the next, they made the Gatewatch, and I mean it lasted for about 5 years. And then they disbanded the Gatewatch and we're gonna try some new things again, which they can do.
Yeah,
and back to Theros. That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah. So it's unfortunate, but I'm hoping to see that if World of Warcraft doesn't take this in a route that doesn't go kind of unfortunately the way that L5R has, and not to bash on Fantasy Flight Games because they are doing effectively a reboot following a lot of normal beats though, and people did love this specific period of time. So
yeah,
take that for what it is.
I think currently their biggest problem is they're not releasing enough story quick enough. I think.
No, it's been what? I think they've had the game for almost 2 years now.
Yep, 2 years.
Maybe, yeah.
It's been 2 years, and
since it released, I think they've owned it for like three or four.
It is barely moved in 2 years' time.
Yeah, they've. I don't know. I know they had some issues, like their arc era or whatever they're called, got delayed, which I know set them back. But man, it felt like just trying to keep up with the story. It's like there
was like a giant 5 of them came out within like a month, and then
the last big story moment
was
happened.
The Emperor dying, I believe.
Right, that was 9 months ago or something.
Yeah, hold on. I can
something like that.
Let me pull it up here real fast.
And the stories we've gotten from then have not advanced that.
Let's see here.
Yeah, which the next giant, basically the next rotation is supposed to do, but like you said, it was delayed and all that stuff. So I don't know, but the stories have been solid. They're well written and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some really cool stories.
Yeah,
but
some nice turns.
Way too slow.
I'm trying to find actually.
How am I supposed to get invested when I get a story randomly every few months?
Yeah, the last short story was released at 4/24 of this year.
Right, and that one didn't even advance. It was like a prequel, or not that one, but the last
ancillary story.
Yeah, I think the last major one was actually farther back because then before that was The Last Stone Played, which was
the prequel, or that was the one that was set before the Emperor died, about the Emperor.
Yeah.
So it's just been forever since they dropped the big story moment and then haven't progressed it at all.
Yeah, and that happened with the AG sometimes too. It's probably just kind of the nature of the beast there.
I'm guessing so, but I would like to see World of Warcraft take a story in a different route. I would like it to finally change, to progress, to become what it must.
For a long time, they were just doing what made them money, right? They're this is working. Why should we change it? But
exactly.
They weren't. They got too settled in on that formula. They weren't able to quickly, see that it wasn't working anymore and change it for the better. Like, maybe there should have been a new World of Warcraft 2 or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, maybe they should have done that a few years ago.
Basically, kind of did. They just didn't call it that.
Actually,
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. I mean, they could do that because a lot of people suspect that they're either going to break up into 3 or 4 factions or mix some of the races around, like Taurens and Orcs. Like, the Alliance and the Horde as we know them will dissolve and become basically like some kind of new affiliation. Because the Night Elves are kind of like lost their shit, for lack of a better term. Yeah. The Worgen are kind of like on their side because they're all about the moon and stuff like the Night Elves.
It's possible we might see them faction change out. I'm hoping for the L5R side of things. I'm really hoping that at the end of the storyline, it takes a very different road.
Yeah,
and
I would like to see a time jump after whatever they're doing right now.
Yeah, I would love to see definitely change.
I don't want them to just hop to the Shadow Dragon, or not Shadow,
the
Living Light and Darkness afterwards.
I feel ultimately any storyline that I feel like if you're writing a storyline, you have to be okay with change. You have to be very, very okay with the fact that you cannot keep repeating those same beats. If you do it, your game is going to stagnate from a very much a storyline wise.
But they also they can't ever get rid of a clan because I think their core will always be legal. So that's already a built-in sort of this.
Well, that's unfortunately
how they might do
created.
It. They could just say you can't play this in a tournament anymore.
Maybe.
Yeah, they could say that, yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's the rules are up to them. They can decide what they want to do with their IP at the end of the day.
I know AEG did get rid of the Scorpion for a time, but they came back.
Yeah,
right. They were banished.
Yeah, that's not a bad thing to do. Being banished and having them eventually come back is fine. It changes up the storyline. Just ultimately, if you're going to have factions fight each other, I feel like maybe after a bit of time, you need to commit to what faction might actually go the way of the dodo. And if not go the way of the dodo, at least be okay with the fact taking a very potential drastic change in its design or the way they work. Because I would have
loved to see an L5R story where just one of the clans basically gets conquered, kind of like what actually happened in feudal.
I mean,
and assimilated essentially.
Technically, that would be the real Sengoku Jidai.
Yeah, what if the
clans did die?
What if the dragon just came down off their mountain and conquered the Otaku family or something? Just raised their lands, subjugated them, married their nobles into their house, and just made them part of the dragon. That would be cool stuff.
That would be very interesting to see. It would be very.
You guys would have been okay if they would just been the crane are gone now.
Honestly, yeah, I'd be fine with that.
Yeah.
If it meant them not being stagnated anymore, if we could see something a little bit special or unique to it,
yeah, it would have been interesting and different.
Yeah,
instead of it being just and sometimes that happened with some of the families, in the history and
Yasuki
and the minor clans bonding together to basically join the Manus, but it was never through conquest. It was always some political necessity. And it was usually a minor clan. It was never a great clan family other than the Yasuki. If I remember correctly.
Don't get me wrong. I would absolutely be sad if the Crane clan was gone. Mostly from the Iaijutsu stuff and whatnot.
You could tell a cool story. Maybe there's the lost Crane heir that wants to reform the clan.
Yeah.
And maybe they have to find allies amongst their former family or find new families or start their there's cool story stuff you could do.
There's definitely a beats and storyline bits.
And you could reboot families that way. It'd be well, now I don't have to worry about the Asahina. They all joined the Phoenix, maybe. We're not going to get them back, so now we need a new Shugenja family. What kind of, mechanical styles, even, what will the new Shugenja family be about? How will that translate to the card game and how they play? There's lots of cool stuff they could have done.
Yeah, there's definitely, different
yeah.
things they can.
Again, you can only do that sort of thing so many times before that starts getting repetitive too, though.
Oh, of course,
it's a hard line to when a game goes on for 20 years, right?
Yeah, of course. There's just a point where sometimes, and this is definitely a topic for another day, but sometimes you have to end the story. You have to move on. And you have to just say goodbye.
Yep, all things must come to an end. Nothing gold can stay, Pony Boy. And there's my literary quote of the day. All right, Mal. What's your topic?
Well, last week I went and saw the latest Marvel movie, Spider-Man: Far From Home. It came out on the 2nd for some reason. Well, I know the reason. Is to capitalize on the 4th being a day off.
Yeah.
And man, were the theaters packed.
Oh, were they really?
Like nearly, I think like every showing. We went on the 4th.
Uh-huh.
We didn't expect them to be sold out, but like, yeah, every showing was selling out. So we had to like wait a couple hours longer and we sat in the handicap row.
I mean, he is basically like the de facto most popular Avenger now too. So
yeah. I want to talk about that. And there will be some spoilers for primarily the villain, because it's hard to talk about more than the first arc or first hit of the story without actually talking about that. So,
spoilers.
Gasp. Run away. Yeah. Run away, little girl. Run away.
Oh,
so,
I know you get it, man.
God.
It is the first movie we get after Endgame, and they do touch on like the whole, half the population was what they call it, blipped out.
Mm-hmm.
And
does it pick up basically right where it left off, kind of?
Shortly after.
Okay.
I might actually hear that.
Yeah, they're like, but it's all from like kind of the perspective of the high school kids. Like, they're like, man, even though we were halfway through the school year, we all had to start over again, and it sucked.
That would suck.
Yeah, they had to start the school year over again. Yep, and they're like, yeah, now remember this young kid? Now he's our age.
Yeah,
it's weird. And of course, Tony Stark, Iron Man, is dead, and that is a big part of Spider-Man's storyline. Dealing with that and the fact that now the world is looking for a replacement. Basically,
a replacement Spider-Man.
A replacement Iron Man.
Oh, like okay.
Someone to fill in Iron Man's shoes.
Sorry, I must have heard that, because I'm like, wait, what? This is his movie.
No. Yeah. So it's based, but the story kicks off with Peter just wants to go on his vacation. His science club or whatever is going to Europe for a school trip, mm-hmm. and he just wants to leave the superhero stuff behind, and he has this elaborate plan to confess his feelings to MJ because he's a teenager, and it does not go all that great. It's very like the first bit of the movie is very like teen romance movie, like before the and then Nick Fury shows up and it's a superhero movie again.
You forgot this was a superhero movie,
right? Like it's
Samuel L. Jackson is here to remind you otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah, so he ends up ghosting Nick Fury. Nick Fury keeps calling him, and he won't. And Peter doesn't want to pick up. He leaves his suit back. He tries to leave his suit at home. He just wants a break from being Spider-Man after the whole in-game thing that went down. Mm-hmm. He was sort of dead. Now he's back. But Nick Fury decides that he can't do that. The world needs some help, and he's all they got. Well, him and Mysterio,
Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah, Jake Gyllenhaal's character, Quinn Beck, is that his name? I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
I think it's Quinn or Quentin, but he shows up because there's these elementals, that beings made up of fire, wind, water, and air that are popping up. And they destroyed the world he was from, a different universe. And
really,
yeah. So they're showing up on this world now at the same points they showed up on his world. So he is able to sort of give them a heads up and when Peter is in Venice, the water one shows up, and he ends up having to deal with it without a costume. He runs around with trying not to reveal who he is, but after that he still tries to run away from the problem and gets diverted to Prague instead of going to France, and they end up fighting. The fire one shows up. It's supposed to be the last one, and him and Mysterio team up, and they finish him off. And then the big twist that Mysterio... I forgot. Tony Stark leaves Peter these one last gift, and it's these sunglasses that have an advanced AI that control just basically all of Iron Man's tech.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, this is too much responsibility. I'm 16. I just want to hang out with my friends. So he tries to pass them on to Mysterio, and shortly after, that's when Mysterio reveals who he was. Anyone who knows anything about Spider-Man is that Mysterio is a con man who uses illusions, and all of the elementals ended up being these illusions that Mysterio just wants to be the hero to the world. And these glasses will help him do it. And he doesn't care if who dies in the process of him getting on top.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah. The big theme of the movie is things aren't always what they seem, and it's throughout the entire movie, and it's pretty great. There are some stunning visuals that associated with Mysterio that are like straight out of a comic book. Like probably the most...
Always love it when they do that.
Like probably some of the most comic book like scenes in the entire MCU. Like these are like, it's so good. Like even topping Doctor Strange, really. Like I kind of want the team behind this to do the next Doctor Strange movie. Like,
yeah.
I think they could definitely play up, like they could the mysticism of Doctor Strange, and make it look amazing. And it's and it gets pretty brutal at times too. A lot darker than what you might expect from like a teen rating movie with some of the stuff that, yeah.
That's actually cool to hear.
Yeah, they some of the emotional and physical stuff they don't really pull any punches on. Yeah. Like, it's a very Spider-Man story.
Yeah.
Like, he's always stuck between
Peter
trying
Parker
to live a normal life, and being Spider-Man. And I think that the director said that the first one was a kid trying to be an adult, or wanting to be treated like an adult, and this one is everyone treating him like an adult when he just wants to be a kid.
Yeah.
That's actually kind of funny.
Yeah, which I assume the third of the trilogy will like culminate in a coming of age story where he finally takes up full responsibility for everything. Because the movie definitely portrays him as someone like that. They're probably like, if they have a 10-year plan, like I think Spider-Man's going to be at the forefront of like the next Avenger plan or whatever. It'll be very interesting to see him grow up past these movies.
Because the next one might be him in college, maybe.
I can't say.
Depends.
There's some stuff that happens, the post-credit scenes or the mid and post-credit scenes.
You can spoil the post-credit scene for me. If you
I'm not going to right now.
Okay, after the podcast.
But it's some of the best stuff, like some of the best use of the post-credit scenes that sets up the next like Spider-Man arc and possibly the next phase of Marvel. Like, because this is the last Phase 3 movie. And it does feel like sort of an epilogue to the like
Yeah, because
Iron
they
Man.
got to move on from Iron Man and
Right.
Cap and stuff. Eventually.
Yeah, that and
Which I'm glad for, but this is exactly what I'm talking about. Change. They're
Mhm.
changing things.
Yeah. One thing is the way they did Mysterio's backstory is they did tie it to Iron Man, which is one of the things I've seen people like less happy about, to have another villain tied to Tony Stark. But I don't know. To me, it made sense because just of how prolific he is to the MCU universe, like on Earth, like everything he does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it's also Mysterio is a team, like he's the face, but it's like him working with a team of basically other people that have been scorned by Tony Stark. Like one of the guys is from the first movie. The scientist who gets yelled at by Jeff Bridges' character about Tony built this in a cave with a pile of scrap or whatever.
Awesome.
Like he's that scientist. Yeah, it's yeah, they all have like this tie to Tony Stark, and
That's hilarious.
It really plays into Mysterio's backstory from the comics. Is he was an actor, and it really sets like he in this one he was actually in this one he was the guy who invented the barf unit, which is from Civil War, the thing where you like Tony Stark looks at like is showing the scene with him and his parents, the holograms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Jake Gyllenhaal's character created that.
Huh.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and he's like he doesn't have like the kind of motivations where like that make you like sympathize. Like he's not a sympathetic villain. He's just kind of a dick, but he's still so good.
Yeah.
Jake Gyllenhaal also is a really good actor.
Oh yeah, he is.
Which is funny because I always think back to him as Bubble Boy. Whenever I see him,
Oh man,
like
he was Bubble Boy, wasn't he? Yeah,
it's like always the first thing I see.
When he started doing serious movies,
Nightcrawler was like his big,
yeah,
like creep factor moment. Like
everyone loves Donnie Darko.
Yeah,
Prince of Persia, not so much.
Yeah, he also like gets to act badly, like when he's pretending to be Spider-Man's friend, but it's just like sort of off. Like there's just something off about the performance, and then when the twist drops or whatever in like the first, I don't know, 30 minutes of the movie, it's just yeah, it's really good. Like that switch. It's always great to see actors sort of like kind of act badly when they are good actors.
Meta acting within the movie, basically.
Yeah, that's actually a very cool and fun thing to see at times.
Yeah. Man. Yeah, it's got a lot of good, like, it's got a lot of touching moments. I find it, there's a lot of really funny stuff going on, really good callbacks. I really liked just the solo experience though. Like, there are some, characters, Nick Fury, Maria Hill, and Happy from the other MCU stuff, but no like heroes other than Spider-Man, which is just kind of cool coming down off of Endgame. Yeah. It was nice to get back to that kind of feel. Man, I love Spider-Man though. He's the only hero in the MCU that is like trying to also live a normal life, which like Ant-Man tried, but now he's just off doing science stuff. Like, or they don't like, and tons of other people don't even have a secret identity. Like, it's just so good. Like, they really like are pushing even though in this version of Spider-Man, we never see his moment with Uncle Ben and with great power comes great responsibility, but they are really like that is at the heart of this movie.
Yeah, you can see it
without it just being said, right? Like it's more show than tell.
Yeah, I think they don't want to repeat the Raimi thing where it kept calling back to that scene in every movie.
Right. People have seen Spider-Man's origin twice now on the big screen.
We don't need to see it anymore, yeah.
Like his suitcase does have I think it's I can't remember Ben the initials for Ben Parker. So like he was, he was around at one point. But,
Yeah.
like, we don't need to see that death again. And also, like,
Sure.
Iron Man does kind of fulfill some of
The
that
father
same,
figure-esque role.
Right.
Yeah.
And him coming to terms. The teacher from the first one is back, and he is hilarious. I think Zendaya really gets more into her role as MJ. Like,
That's good. She didn't have a lot to do in the first one because of
I think she
Vulture's daughter.
feels, she feels like, like more into the character as well. Ned's still there, his friend. Like, all of the, basically, most of his class
Flash.
from before, Flash is there, got snapped, so they're still, all the same age. There's one guy who is sort of like, a minor antagonist on the relationship side of things.
Mhm.
That he's like the only person who wasn't snapped, so he was really young before, and now he's their age. He's also on the trip. But yeah, it's, I don't know, I liked it more than the first one, I think. But
Really?
some people are like, are.
I've seen
aren't
most
quite
people say
sure.
they're about equal. Probably.
Yeah. I think I just liked the school trip setting more than just the
New
typical,
York.
like the normal high school setting. Like, I really love the way they try and do it as a teen movie mixed with superhero stuff. I'm just a fan of teen movies anyway. Always have been. Just, I don't know.
You just like that topic, man.
Yeah.
You know what you like.
And Tom Holland as Spider-Man
does a
He
really
does
good job.
Yeah, he just does a good job.
Yeah, he hits all parts of Spider-Man. Just being Peter Parker and just like,
he's a very enjoyable character to watch,
He's-
especially playing.
he's
the
really
character
got
he is.
the snark levels down too, which I don't think. I know people love Tobey Maguire, but he never really had that.
Yeah, he was not as good as Spider-Man.
Right.
I like Tobey Maguire more as the awkward, weird, nerdy Peter Parker than Tom Holland. But Tom Holland's in the suit is better.
Yeah. Well, they updated Peter Parker to they updated even Flash is a different kind of bully. It's more typical of a current high
They're
school.
Zoomers, Mal. Just say it. They're Zoomers.
I don't know what that means.
I don't actually know what that means either.
Okay. We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
They're not boomers. They're Zoomers.
Well, I mean, Gen Z, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. That's the term.
Yeah.
That's the internet lingo term.
Oh, I hadn't heard that before. But yeah, they even humanize Flash a little bit at the very end, they give him a little moment to where you're like, oh. They also focus more on his spider sense, which is pretty cool. That's another underlying thread of the movie, which I liked seeing. And it leads to a really awesome scene. It's never been a big focus of any of the other Spider-Man stuff.
But it's nice to see here.
Yeah.
Good.
Because it's a really cool, not needing visuals for choreography really can open some things up, which is cool.
So have they said what's next in the MCU movie-wise?
I don't even think we've got exact confirmations. I know they're making the Black Widow prequel.
And Black Panther 2, I'm sure, is in the works.
Yeah, they've confirmed that there's going to be at some point a so the Black Widow one is in production, I believe, right now. And then there will be a Black Panther, Doctor Strange, Guardians 3 eventually.
Captain Marvel too.
Then they've got some of the TV stuff, but for the streaming service stuff. But we have 2 movies coming out next year, but I don't even think they've said what they were exactly.
I don't think
everyone assumes Black Widow will be one of them, but I think we find out next week at Comic-Con.
Okay. Then you can report on it then, right?
Yeah.
You're going live to the event, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's absolutely going to be there. Sure.
Reporting from the floor.
We're going to send him out there with our big expensive.
our budget of $0. Fly him out there all the way across the country.
Gonna get him the finest hotel. He'll be able to sip on the greatest of wines as he
only.
peruses.
There was something in the post-credit scenes that may be hinting at Fantastic Four, which would be cool.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
they need to do an actual good version of them.
Right.
Yeah.
But
that's
we won't.
depressing to say.
We don't know what's like. They're going to be. We know that they're going to be at Comic-Con next week, so look forward to that.
They'll be saying. They have to be saying something. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, I loved it. I want more Spider-Man. Spider-Man's my favorite. So,
Yeah.
He's the world's favorite. Like, he's the most popular superhero in the world, basically. I know Japan
him
loves
and Batman, basically.
Yeah.
Japan really loves him.
Like, I've seen a few different articles recently, like about different directors talking about why Spider-Man appeals to Japan versus all of these other Western heroes. And generally, it's because he's young and just
young.
It's the closest thing to their. It's their closest thing to their animes and their mangas.
Right. I mean, he's responsible for the Power Rangers.
It's just like one of my Japanese animes.
Thank you, Meta. I was waiting on that. All right, let's get on my topic.
Speaking of Japanese things,
yeah, I'm going to talk about Puyo Puyo Tetris. No, that is a very Japanese game. No, I'm going to talk about Nintendo finally officially announced an alternate version of their popular, awesome, handy dandy console, the Nintendo Switch.
Oh, they're coming out with a pro version?
Yes, but that is yet to be hardened out, the details specifically. Oh. Maybe we'll figure out more by the end of the year about that. But no, they've officially, as if we didn't know already, put the death knell in the 3DS. It's in the coffin, bury it. It ain't coming back like The Undertaker. We got the Nintendo Switch Lite. Will be released on September 20th is when it's coming out.
I can't believe this. This is the most tragic thing I've ever heard.
It means it weighs less.
How can I parse that cryptic name?
L-I-T-E.
No,
it's light. You know, it's like the diet soda of the Nintendo Switch.
Does it glow?
Yeah, the screen does.
Oh.
There you go. So yeah, it's basically a smaller, more handheld version of the Switch. It's more for, especially in Japan, mobile gaming is so big, and this seems geared more towards the Japanese market, to be honest.
Like, I think, does mobile gross more than, like, consoles? I think it does.
Yeah, way more in Japan. Like phone games are
absolutely
ridiculously...
Well, just phone and handheld games.
Yeah. Like, that's where because you always see the handhelds sell, like, and sometimes, like, way better than the consoles do. Most often it's because the Japanese sells, because Japanese people commute a lot, they ride subways, they don't drive a lot, they have longer work days, they're not at home a lot, so they get a lot of their gaming done on the go, so that's why mobile gaming is so popular in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Not surprised.
Yeah, so they're releasing the Nintendo Switch Lite, which is... I'm a little disappointed it's only 3 colors. I don't really like any of the color options they gave. There's a gray one, a yellow one, and a turquoise, I think. Some kind of light blue.
Something like that. Yeah.
They're also doing a Pokemon Sword and Shield version, of which I think looks the best, honestly. Color-wise. It's more of a silvery. It's got the 2 legendaries on the back.
Lighter gray with the
Pokemon Swish
outlines. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this thing's retailing for $199, so it's $100 cheaper than the normal version. So if you're looking to get into the Switch, this is definitely the most economic way to do it. But that comes with some caveats. Obviously, being a handheld,
caveats.
It does not have detachable Joy-Cons, but it did add a D-pad, so that's good. The screen's smaller. I think. God, what was the size? 5.5 inches compared to the Switch's 6.2. I'm, by the way, reading off of Brian Ashcraft's report on this on Kotaku, so this is where I just want to properly quote this information. It is going to have a slightly longer battery life, they said, but it's not going to be like super significant. a lot of the rumored, Mao and I were talking about this earlier, a lot of the rumored kind of like Switch Pro, it's not going to be more graphical, it's going to be more performance, so a little bit better CPU and a little bit better battery life. And battery life's mostly what I would care about.
I think this one has a bit better battery life.
It does. It's not...
But just a little bit.
Maybe like half an hour to an hour, I think, is what
yeah.
they said. It's not like a significant amount, but it does have a different one, battery life. So you can't... The handheld version, the Switch Lite, you cannot dock it. There's no dock mode. You can't detach Joy-Cons and play with it, so there's no need for a kickstand on the Switch Lite. Handheld only, but you can connect wireless controller. So if you have Joy-Cons for games like 1-2 Switch and stuff like that, games where you gotta use motion controls, you can sync it. You're just gonna have to prop your like Switch up against something because it doesn't have a kickstand. Which they should have made a better kickstand for it, in my opinion.
You think they would have?
But hey, man, Nintendo's zany. They do what they do, and sometimes it's just baffling and makes no sense.
I saw some people wondering if the non-detachable Joy-Cons are going to be like a big problem because the Joy-Cons have had bad joysticks. Like a lot of the joysticks have gone bad. I guess like it's just a known thing. Like. And if you can't take off the Joy-Cons, you're just left with, non-working controllers attached to your Switch.
Yeah, which is not great.
Mm-hmm.
They got a handy little chart. The Switch itself is only 3.6 inches high, 8.2 inches long, and 0.55 inches deep, as compared to the normal one. It's 4 inches high, 9.4 long, 0.55 deep. So the same depth. I would say it probably looks about 20% smaller than the normal Switch, maybe 25, something like that. It weighs about 0.2 pounds less. I've seen a lot of people who got to actually hold it say it was like fairly noticeable after playing on it for a little bit. And it's not compatible with every Nintendo Switch game.
That's
either.
Interesting.
There will be warnings on the online store that'll say if it's supported or not before you buy it. It just won't let you buy a game that you can't play on it without warning you first.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah, and they are doing I believe they said they're doing it comes with a Breath of the Wild, or at least a bundle of sorts, and it...
Yeah, probably.
And Ashcraft said it coincidentally releases on the same day as Link's Awakening remake, so we might get a bundle there as well. Nintendo also, in a separate article, announced that this is the only version of the Switch alternate version that's coming out this year.
Good.
So that's pretty much all the details about it. I want to ask you guys to kind of like bundle, I guess, these two things together. Are we pretty much sure they're going to do a quote-unquote Switch Pro? If so, how much more do you think it'll be, and what do you think the specs will be on it? And what would you like to see in one? Like, what would it take to get you to potentially purchase one? Maybe. Because I'm probably going to get one if they do it, as long as it's not, like, ridiculously more expensive. Like, $50 to $100 more, sure. But more than that, it gets a bit iffy depending on what all we're adding onto it. So what would be ideal for you guys?
I don't know. I'm kind of content with what I have, and unless there is a real big reason, there's got to be like a pretty potent reason to like.
It would have to.
Hypothetically, what would it take?
It would have to play games that I couldn't already play for me personally. I never have bought in the upgraded versions of consoles. I'm fine with like what I have.
The regular PlayStation too.
Yeah, I
think the only other time I've ever picked up, like I'm kind of with Mal on this one. The only time I've ever picked up a console that is a better version of itself was the PS4 Pro, and that was specifically because rumors and news was coming out that games were going to have the option to potentially lock the frame rate if you played on a PS4 Pro. And I was like, well, I like playing my games on a very steady frame rate, so I will absolutely, if that's part of like what comes with it, then absolutely I'll buy the newer version of it just so that I can lock like a game down at 60 frames per second. And then, the hell with the graphics or the resolution. I want my sweet frame rate. So
yeah, I mean, and that's more what you're like. at a certain point, who cares if it's 30 or 60? It's more about stability. And that is something that honestly is notable in some of the Switch games. You get lots of dips in frame rate. So a better CPU would be really nice.
If we see the new Switch come out and they can guarantee that games that come out for like the sweet Switch Pro is gonna be able to lock down those frame rates, then I might pick it up. That might truly convince me, but it's gonna have to be something solid like that. And as we saw with PS4 Pro, that didn't always equate to the case either.
Mm-hmm.
Not all the games have that on the PS4 Pro. It's just not something that they implement because that's per the developer.
Yeah,
so,
even if it were the same price or cheaper, even I probably wouldn't pick it up because I've already spent money on the console and I don't want to do that again.
And that's kind of the other problem. Is like then you got to go spend money on the console.
You got to sell it.
Yeah, and then you got to sell the other one and try to get somebody to convince it when the new one is coming out, and it's like, ugh.
Yeah,
that's nuts. That's a lot of hassle.
I only have played 2 games on my Switch so far.
I've got like 2 or 3 games. That's the same thing. Like I don't.
Y'all need to play some Octopath Traveler.
Yeah, right.
To be fair, I'm about to pick up a 200-hour game in a few days.
That's true. It's basically 3 games in one.
Yeah. So I mean, like, I'm glad I have my Switch. I guess already. Like, a game I want is about to come out, but before now, like,
and Pokemon now. Don't forget about Pokemon.
That's in November.
There's 2 games this year.
Oh, that is
that's a lot
more than I've bought so far.
Called your bluff.
This year.
For me, the big thing is
battery life for you, right?
Battery life is so big
because you do take it.
I do actually play it a decent amount, not docked. Like I like to take it to work and play it on lunch.
Would you have gotten this
Lite? To my buddy's house, like.
Would you have considered getting the Lite if it had like,
if
3
it could
hours
dock,
extra battery life?
If it could dock and it had extra battery life, then yes.
I see.
It still has I think people are wondering if they can do rigs on it because it still has the USB-C port on the bottom.
Right.
And that's basically
that's what
all.
I was wondering,
people are thinking if there's like an adapter way you can do it to actually get it to dock outside of
it. I wouldn't be surprised though if it was like a software limitation that you might have to like jailbreak it or whatever they're called. What are they? Whatever.
Hack your Switch, basically.
Basically hack it to get it done. Like put a homebrew on it.
Yeah,
but
Nintendo always like comes out with multiple versions of their stuff. Like when they did the 3DS, they eventually did the 3DS XL, and then they did the 2DS, and they always want to give like a cheaper alternative for like kids and stuff like that too, and like multiple kid households. Sometimes parents like you want to invest. You want both your kids if they're into gaming to have. Like me and my brother back in the day, we both had to have Game Boys, so it's always nice that there's like they come up with like cheaper alternatives and stuff. So
yeah.
How much did they say again that the battery power for the new version would be increased by?
It's like only half an hour. It says approximately 2.5 to 6.5 hours for the old one, to 3 to 7. See, like terrible. two more would be better.
You get an hour longer on their Breath of the Wild test. Like the original Switch did 3 hours on Breath of the Wild. The new one will do 4. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just depends on how much it uses the CPU, the game, like how demanding it is on the system ultimately. That's why I always took a charge thing with me. I mean, if you have a Switch and you play it not in dock mode ever, like I would just generally recommend picking up one of those USB-C battery things. Like they're cheap. They make your Switch literally like triple its battery life. They're just worth it. So like the technology, like they could do something to make it more. I think that's just not like where they're focused. It's just weird that the handheld version is only so many more, but not I don't know. I'm not a tech master whiz guy, and the 3DS, man, that thing would last like 10 to 15 hours.
Yeah, well, the bigger screen is just such a huge thing. Mm-hmm. Like the screen size really doesn't. It's not a direct. Like it's not a a simple double the screen, half the battery life sort of.
And I don't know if this one does it too, because on the normal model of the Switch, you obviously have like the Joy-Cons drain battery as well. Like I don't know if how that works on this one, since they're not technically Joy-Cons. Yeah, I think they drain battery. That's how they charge, is by charging on the actual system's battery. I could be wrong. I don't know, but that's what I surmise, anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, being $100 cheaper, I'm not sure if that's enough. Like, you only have to spend $100 and you can hook up to a TV. Like,
yeah,
like it really is for people who have no interest in hooking it up to their TV.
Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, it is a significant amount of money, but still, it's more like, do you prefer the handheld? Are you going to mostly play it on the go? Then get the one with slightly better battery life and
right. Well, usually, I don't know.
But that option is nice to have.
Yeah, it's not like the old decisions though, where you're like handheld or console. Like if you get the $300 Switch, you have both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's
like it's weird because I've seen a lot of game sites and stuff do polls to say how do you mostly play your Switch, Doctor, and most people play it on the go. Weirdly, I mean, because I'm sure it just depends on the city you live in too. Because we also have cities where people take public transit and commute and stuff like that, and like most people who write for game sites are in tech cities, so with lots of commuting, like San Francisco and stuff. I think like if you watch people talk about it who live out there, a lot of them are like, that's why they love the Switch, is because they play it on the bus and stuff like that, and they get like a actual like decent looking games, and they're just doing a better job than Sony did with the Vita. So,
that's not hard.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm curious if Sony's going to try and get back in handheld stuff like this. There's been rumors that there's like prototypes floating around, but I doubt it at this point, since they're focusing on the PS5, unless it's going to be some weird, like kind of like Microsoft I think is doing, where it's you like sync it into your phone or like tablet technology. I doubt they're going to come out with their own like hardware. It's probably going to be
the future will be streaming, right?
The future will be streaming, totally.
So saith Google. But yeah, that's there's not a whole lot of info out. I mean, there's not a lot to really parse through. It's just cool that we finally got like a confirmation about a new model. And
I am surprised that the rumors for the Lite and then like a Pro type version dropped at like the same time, but we've only gotten the Lite only the the lighter one has been confirmed.
Yeah, and I was saying I'm surprised they didn't sync it up with Pokemon rather than that, but I don't know. I don't study game markets and all that.
Yeah, I mean they're coming out with a version like a bundle, like I don't know.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know why. Like, it's a month sooner, right? Or 2 months sooner.
Yeah, Pokemon's November.
Yeah, 2 months sooner. I don't know what benefit that gets them, like waiting till November.
Yeah. I don't know. It just seems like something they would have done potentially, but since that's like one of their huge IPs, obviously. So, but I don't know. I don't work for Nintendo. I'm not the Bowser man. I'm not. I don't know. I don't know the president. I knew Iwata, but he's gone now. Rest in peace.
You're telling me that you've never shaken hands with Bowser before?
No. Nor Reggie, much to my dismay. My body will never be Reggie.
Wow, you should have told me this, dude. I'll have to invite you onto our weekly lunches that we go out to.
You fly out to...
Just every week. I just fly out there, casually have lunch with them.
Fly out to Seattle.
Yeah, no problem.
Renton, Washington, I think it's it.
I think it's in Washington, Seattle,
yeah. Yeah. So cool they're doing this. Nintendo always does this. This was very expected. I want to see the specs on this Pro version. What will they call it? Will it be bigger? Give me that battery life.
Yeah, I mean, it could
I
just
would-
be
I would
the
assume.
Switch
The
Plus,
Switch
right?
XL. Switch Plus
yeah,
makes
that-
sense. It's even got a little plus sign. It's like the start
Oh.
button.
I would
Yeah.
not be surprised if they called it Switch Pro. I would not even be absolutely surprised.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to gift you guys like Octopath Traveler or something.
Actually,
to get y'all to
think-
play that. Game is
I can't
so
remember if
good.
I can't remember if I've actually bought it already or not. So
You're playing Final Fantasy V now. It's basically the same thing.
Right? But so I should stop playing 5?
No, you should
You're
finish
trying
5.
you're telling me that I should stop playing Final Fantasy V?
It's like Final Fantasy V with better music.
Ho ho.
Oh,
And
I-
probably
Bold
a
claim.
bit lesser of a story, but better music. So, anyways. All right, this has been episode 86 of Podcast of Five Rings, your source of enlightenment in the realm of video games, tabletop, anime, film, and tech. Each episode of Podcast of Five Rings releases Monday mornings on iTunes and SoundCloud, and Talk About Topic day by day on YouTube, with the full video releasing on Friday. Check us out on social media. We're on Twitter at Podcast5R, Facebook P5R Podcast, Men and Lily Stream, twitch.tv/PSOFlow, Tetsuo's blog, thegeekyspirit.com. He had some painting articles out recently, and they were pretty good for beginners. So if you want to get into mini painting, I suggest you check out that site. Or you go to Gen Con and you sign up for one of the paint courses.
Yeah, you can do that too.
That are all
That's
sold
crazy.
out by now, because I actually looked at them. Or at least the good one, the ones that I don't care
Definitely.
about. A course all about using glazes.
They're definitely sold out. right now, for
Well,
sure.
yeah, all the interesting ones are sold out by now.
Here's how you make bases.
I'm only signed up for See, that would
First,
be a
you have
cool
to
one. That's
find-
one I'd actually want to do, like a
I want-
basing one.
I know like what they mean by base, but I kind of want it to be like first you need to find a good plot of land that you can build your base on. Now you're gonna want to choose a spot that's easily defensible.
for dirt and grass and rocks, right? No, you want to defend it. What are you talking
No, you want
about?
to defend.
It's your
Preferably, if
it's
you
your secret
can,
base. It's got to be
Find a
hidden
spot with a cliff on the back of it. Makes it very hard for
behind a
anybody to go after it.
waterfall,
Yeah,
a
right.
cave.
Very
Yeah.
secretive spot.
Yeah, Gen Con's almost amongst us, Meta. We're almost
It
there.
is.
3 weeks. I'm ready for it. Even though I'm only signed up for like 3 events right now. I got a special surprise, maybe. Well, it's not really that cool, but we'll see if it pans.
Really sold me on this.
It depends.
Yeah,
it depends
I'm
on
really
certain.
liking this. I'm really liking this. This sounds great.
It depends on certain things happening, but I don't know. That's but tangentially Gen
Let's
Con
wrap
related.
this up. Bring us home.
Yeah,
I'm not making
yeah.
any sense. We'll see you guys next time for Final Fantasy talk. I'm gonna go play more Final Fantasy.
Go for
All
it.
right, I'll
Final
finish
Fantasy.
5.
All right.